to read before we get started. The meeting of the Fox River Valley Public Library Board of Trustees will be held without a quorum of the library trustees physically present. The library trustees will conduct the board meeting with library trustees attending remotely via electronic means. This method of conducting the board meeting is authorized by executive order of the governor, COVID-19 Executive Order number 5, dated March 16th, 2020. This notice will be included in the minutes of the meeting. The second is our public notice. Due to the current public health concerns, this meeting is being conducted electronically. Anyone wishing to observe and/or comment must email library board at Fox River Valley Public Library District.info no later than 12 p.m. on Tuesday, April 21st, and will receive online access to the meeting. If you do not have electronic access and would like to make a public statement, you can call the library at 847-428-3661 before 5 p.m. on Tuesday, April 21st, and leave a message indicating you would like your message to be read into the record during the public comment section of the meeting. A recording of this meeting will be available on the library's website by Friday, April 24th. Okay, now I can call the meeting of the Fox River Valley Library District Board of Trustees meeting of April 21st, 2020 to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Dave.
I think Dave's muted.
Dave, you're muted.
Here.
Okay. Chris.
Here.
Mike.
Present.
Brian.
Here.
Nikki is here. Christina.
Here.
Richard. Richard, you're muted.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Richard, say you're here again.
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you. Could we have the Pledge of Allegiance? Do we have that?
Yep.
Lauren, put up.
Sharing my screen.
Okay, well, the flag will be coming up in just a second.
Can you see it now?
No.
Now?
There it is.
All right.
Everyone please rise to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay.
Hopefully everybody had pants on.
Yeah, I hope. Okay, public comment. The board recognizes its responsibility to provide an opportunity for anyone wishing to comment at any meeting to do so. Due to the current public health concerns, the April 21st, 2020 meeting will be conducted electronically. Any person viewing the meeting online or wishing to comment will be accommodated in accordance with the public notice that I read a few moments ago. Citizens will not be requested to sign in order to comment. And again, as always, all persons wishing to make a statement will be allowed 5 minutes to do so, and it is not intended for the board to join into a two-way conversation with anyone presenting. So do we have anyone out there that would like to make a public comment? I don't hear any. John, was there anybody that signed in from the public? We don't miss somebody?
No, there is all library employees. And just to remind you, if you need to make a comment right now, unmute yourself to do that.
Okay, we'll wait just a moment. Lauren, was there anyone, or Karen, anyone that sent in electronically sent in a message that they would like read into the record tonight?
We did not receive, we had the phone number posted. We did not receive any phone messages nor email messages that they wanted to have read into the record. So no.
Okay, then I think we can move on to the next portion, which is the president's report. First of all, in keeping with the spirit of the exemption that the governor has granted for electronic meeting, we're going to try to restrict our business tonight to that which is necessary. Accordingly, I've taken off trustee reports. However, at the end of my report, if the trustee would like to make a report of some kind, they will be able to do that. Included with the packet is the budget, levy, and legal calendar for everyone's review. This is simply a listing of the important all statutory deadlines so that we're meeting them within the boundary of our board meetings as set forth in the ordinance that's attached to the consent agenda. Additional important deadlines are associated with placing a question on the ballot and for any trustees that are up for re-election, the dates of the nominating petitions and that sort of thing, all in one sheet. So please review that and keep it for reference. They don't have any correspondence. Any trustee like to make a report of any kind?
Yes, Chairman Corbett, Mike Tennis here.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
I will try to be brief. I did attend, this is my 6th virtual meeting since March 23rd. And I participated in a District 300 Finance Committee meeting. And I just want to call to everybody's attention that April 28th, District 300 Board of Education has a business meeting where they are planning to approve a $142,000 architect contract for a new $26 million Hampshire Elementary School. Dewberry, the architect, on their schedule also calls for acquiring the land in late April or early May. And then I attended a couple of Park District meetings. On the April 1st meeting, the Park District planned on furloughing most of 137 employees in their workforce. Approximately 78 part-time employees were to be furloughed April 7th, and full-time employee furloughs, 34 of the 59 were scheduled to be furloughed on April 18th. I also attended the virtual meeting for the Township Board on April 15th. They had a proposition for a November referendum to increase taxes and a proposition to abolish the highway district. They didn't act on either one of those, but discussed it in length for both referendum items. They have scheduled a May 6th public hearing for the proposed budget. Their fiscal year starts March 1st. So they're going to have a public hearing for their on May 6th. Their budget is on their website, the proposed budget, and it provides for a $750,000 deficit spending, primarily for salaries, benefits, and expenses for open space. They're proposing to use reserves rather than reducing spending, and then go out for a referendum to increase their property taxes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Anybody else? Hearing nothing, we'll go on to the director's report.
Okay, so there are no presentations tonight. Did anyone have any questions about the department head reports? We've got both the February and the March reports in the board packet.
A lot of activity during the month of February and March, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then, you know, a big change to activity for the second half of March as we shifted our focus away from traditional library services and into virtual services. And like the department heads mentioned, and I had included in my written report, the shift to virtual library services has been intensive. We have filled up our overdrive titles, reducing holds down to if 3 people have a title on hold, we're buying another copy. We have increased the hoopla offerings from a limit of 3 per month per card holder to I think we're up to 10 per month per card holder. Just any way to try to satisfy online demand. We had a $400,000 materials budget, and if we can't offer physical materials, then we want to be able to offer online materials. And all the managers have done a great job of coming with additional online offerings, from the bingo card that highlights local businesses. You know, you cross off a square if you buy a gift card to a local restaurant or get takeout at a local restaurant, or yeah, Nikki's got it. It's wonderful, and it demonstrates that the library is a community partner. We recognize the difficulties that local businesses are facing right now, and we are trying to do our part to get people to patronize businesses as much as possible. So yeah, I think everyone has come together to try to do everything that we can to offer service at a time that none of us ever really envisioned. So my hat's off to the managers.
This is Nikki. I saw Harry Potter trivia. I love the read-alongs. There was the bingo. And if I'm missing stuff, I'm sorry, but I've been really impressed at how, like Lauren, how you said, the department heads and the team has come together to try to offer more activities and more. The virtual egg hunt that you were part of, it's been really great to see stepping in and trying to help fill that void that everyone's feeling.
Good, thank you.
Hey, Lauren.
Yes.
This is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Can you comment on the shift to virtual materials and how the costs compare? I mean, is it going to be substantially more expensive or less expensive?
No, I think we plan to budget, I think it's about $26,000 for, say, overdrive ebooks. And I think right now we've put 20 additional thousand towards it. So no, we're not going to go over on our materials budget or anything because of the additional ebook purchases.
Okay, thanks.
This is
And
Chris.
I just wanted to mention, I emailed Lauren a couple of weeks ago because I noticed right away, like, it's been so nice to actually be able to get things that I had been waiting for. I just got American Dirt today. Like 2 weeks ago, it said it was going to take 6 months. So it's very exciting.
I'm glad to hear it.
This is Chris. The comments on our Facebook webpage have been so positive. I don't know whether you've noticed them. And I have had some people contact me and say, thanking me as a board trustee. And I was like, I had nothing to do with this. This is your library. And I even posted myself on the webpage. I am so proud of our library because actually I've heard some things that have been happening, like in Arlington Heights, where a friend of mine is a librarian there. And in order to keep up with the demand, they have been doing some things that are less than questionable as far as copyrights go. And I am proud that we're not doing that.
I would like to do a special shout out to Kirsten, talking about social media. Her idea of taking pictures all throughout the libraries and posting how much we miss you, right? How much the children's department misses people in there. That was really, really innovative. And I haven't seen any other library doing anything like that. So I'm really, really proud of that.
Yeah, that's also very cute with the heart,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with the we miss you, and it's very. This is Nikki again. Sorry, got to announce yourself first. So yes, very nicely done.
And she's also giving like some nice little history or viewpoints or things that people may not even realize we have in our library by introducing them and saying that part. So I think that's an amazing, I didn't know who did that, but that is fabulous.
And in addition, the youth department has been posting on Instagram, and teen on Instagram, and adult on Twitter as well. So our plan was for a social media posting, if not every day, every other day. Because again, if we can't do this physically in the libraries, we're doing everything that we can online.
This is Nikki, and I do have one question. You do say, and for new patrons, online library card creation, have we seen quite an increase in those online library cards? Are people utilizing that? I don't remember if I saw that in the packet, and if it was there and I missed it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Let me see. Do we have Carrie? If you're on, can you answer that? Or Jason?
Hi guys, it's Carrie. Yeah, I can't answer that, and I apologize for not including that in the packet. I would say we probably had about 40 patrons sign up for online library cards since March 15th, which is significantly more than usual. So people are definitely utilizing that. And Jason can speak to the email interactions if he wishes to do so.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate you jumping in. If there are no other questions about department head reports?
That might be something to highlight, like every third day or something like that, is about the library, because I don't think I've seen that since, I think Kirsten did a post on it at the very beginning. Maybe that'd be something to do continually. If she can work it into even just the natural way she's doing the miss you or something, is if you miss us, get your online library card, or something, I don't know, something like that. Just to, I think that is a really valuable offering that people might not know, especially as this keeps going.
Yeah, that's good feedback. We'll do that.
I just wanted to mention too that I thought it was really interesting that you guys are going to have state Senate office hours. That was kind of cool, even though it's put on hold now, but I would love to hear more about that. I don't know if now's the time though.
Well, we were really happy to get that opportunity, and I think Becky Gillum was pretty excited too. So I'm while there's a pause in it now, I'm certain that it'll happen down the road.
I also think it's really important. Sorry, this is Chris. I think it's really important that we keep some really good stats about how many library cards come about. So maybe it could be also encouraging, maybe those 40 people who did it, that is for one whole household. But I think when we start looking to build a new library, that's going to be important. You know, these are the services and this is how many people joined during that time when you couldn't get to the library and we still could service you. And I think you may want to, tagged on with what Nikki said, we may want to encourage parents to come on and get library cards for individual children so that we have that in our stats. I don't know, maybe that's superfluous, but just seems like it could be important info.
Yeah, that's a good point. It helps with the limits. If you've got so many Hoopla checkouts, if you've got multiple cards, that just gives you more Hoopla checkouts. So. Anything else? Okay. With the note on dashboard, and as you could see from the dashboard, the physical closing of the buildings on March 13th definitely impacted all our statistics. And yeah, nothing more to say there. And then the last part of my director's report, I have a short statement I'd like to read. That, as you know, while I'm now the director of the Fox River Valley Libraries, in the past I have sat where you sit in the role of library trustee. I was on the board of the Fox River Grove Library District for a decade, and I know that the decisions you're facing tonight are ones that you never expected to face. Trustees usually join the library board because you love the library and you want to give back to your community. When you're a new trustee, you think you'll be making decisions about what the library will do, operational decisions, and you soon find that your responsibilities are primary policies and financial documents and attending meetings. COVID-19 has changed everything. Our lives this past month are not what we'd expected them to be, and our meeting tonight is not what I'd ever hoped it would be. Board members must consider your community's needs and make decisions that affect your friends and your neighbors. I don't envy you the decisions before you, but I want to express my appreciation for the care and thought that will go into the process. Thank you.
Okay, this is Richard. Well said, Lauren. I think that kind of sums up our everyone's view that this COVID-19 really has affected all of us in ways that we never imagined we could be affected before. So our job is to do the best we can and to try to keep our taxpayers keep them always at forefront as we make our decisions. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. First of all, before I ask for a motion, are there any items on the consent agenda that a trustee would like left off?
Chairman Mike Tennis speaking. There are 3 items I'd like excluded from the consent agenda: A1K, A1M, and A1Q.
Okay, if I've got that right, it's A1K as Kilo, A1M as Mary, and A1Q as in Queen. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, then may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items A1A through A1R minus A1K, A1M, and A1Q. May I have such a motion, please?
I move to accept the mentioned items.
Okay. Second, please.
I'll second. Brian.
State your
Brian.
name, please. Who was it that seconded?
That's Brian.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay,
So Christina motioned and Brian second.
that's correct. Okay, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yes,
Richard.
Yes. Okay, let's revisit A1K. Mike, what do you have on that?
A1K, I just want to touch base to point out that while the year-to-date performance is favorable to budget on the revenue, I like to compare last year versus this year to see how we're trending. Overall revenue is up compared to last year by about 184,000 or 5.2%. Taxes are the biggest part of it, almost 88,000. Impact fees, interest and dividends are the other two big components, with those two impact fees and the interest and dividends total up to about 75,000. And I mention it only from the point of view of they tend to be non-reoccurring items to keep in mind in terms of revenue versus expense as we go into another budget cycle. And the last smaller piece was licenses, also added to the revenue stream. So overall, the revenue stream was definitely favorable compared to last year as well as to budget. That's all I had on the revenue.
can I just mention, my husband got his license renewed at the library and was very pleased with the process. I just wanted to say.
Delighted to hear it.
Okay, Mike, just for clarification, you're not suggesting any change to A1K?
No, I am not.
Okay. How about A1M?
A1M addresses the expenditure summary.
Do we,
And
hold on, before we go on, do we have to vote each one separately, or can we do them? Because the way my sheet says is above repeated for each consent agenda item removed for discussion. Does anybody know from a clarity standpoint?
yes, I can tell you I have no changes proposed, only a matter of trying to provide some financial insight in terms of the where the library's been and where it's going.
Okay, given that, I think after you're finished, Mike, then we can group all three together for a single vote.
Agreed.
Okay, I
Proceed.
just wanted to make sure, because the way
Okay.
this read is but I guess if we're not changing anything, then they can all be lumped together. If we were changing any one of them, we'd have to do them separately. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
Good point, Nikki. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay. Now, as far as the expenditure summary goes, when comparing it to last year, our expenses are up 150,000 or 6.6%. And there's three major components of that. One we've touched upon in previous meetings, which is personnel costs are up 97,000 or 6.3%. And library operations, this surprised me, is up 44,800 some dollars, or 37.5%. And computer expenses are up 20,400 something, or 28.3%. Computers we touched on in the past as well. I focused on the library operations, trying to understand why that was up $44,810. And the biggest piece is the expense side of the license renewals. Okay, 17,600 something. And I looked at the 2-month period, and revenue versus expense for licenses, we netted over $800. So that was good news. The one that it really took some compiling before I realized what it was. Staff development is up $15,200, and that staff development, most of those expenses flowed through in the month of February and March. I suspect, but I don't know for sure. I think it's the 6 employees that participated in the Nashville meeting, which apparently was budgeted for. I personally, as an advocate of governmental agencies participating in association meetings on a limited basis, like 2 people representing a legal entity, not a half a dozen. But it was budgeted, so, and it's water over the dam at this point in time.
Isn't that really quickly, Lauren? Isn't that one? Is that every year, or is that a?
PLA is every other year.
Yeah, it's an every other year. So that's the other thing to keep in mind.
Okay. And then the last component was the copier expense at the Dundee Library, which is about $9,600 incrementally, and that's with all those changes that we went through with the new equipment. So, and there was a small amount of other expenses. So that totaled up to $44,810, or 37.5% increase year over year. And that's all I have on the expenses. And last is the investment report. And our revenue stream was favorable because of the interest and dividends we're realizing on our growing investments. And the yields on the latest report are very good. But that's going to change. And for those who don't watch money costs closely, you will note that the investment report has 3 investments that were maturing and rolling over in April, and for a total of $635,000. We're not going to get the kinds of returns that we got in the past when we go into this next budget cycle, and we need to keep that in mind. And that's all my comments, Chairman.
Brian, would you like to address the Ellers investments, or shall I?
Yeah, Lauren, I mean, we can go ahead. Mike, we have been reviewing like what we would reinvest those funds in as they mature. And as you suggested, there's nothing out there that we're going to get the yields that we were previously. We're keeping the terms fairly short. So Lauren, we rolled them into all 12-month CDs, correct?
No, we moved them into Illinois funds, where the Ellers net of fees in the only CDs we could get were that rate of return wasn't as high as what we could get as the current rate with Illinois funds. So
got it. I'm sorry. Yeah, we were looking at 12-month CDs, and it turned out the Illinois funds rate was comparable, so you just dumped it all in there. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Now may I have a motion to approve consent agenda items A1K, A1M, and A1Q, please.
I move to accept the consent agenda items mentioned.
Christina.
Christina. Nikki will second.
Nikki will second. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Dave.
Yes.
Chris. Hey, Chris.
I couldn't get it to unmute. Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Nikki, yes. Christina.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Okay, moving on, there's no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. Exhibit C1, which is Jana King of Illinois Services Agreement. May I have a motion, please, to authorize the director to enter into a service agreement with Jana King of Illinois to clean the Dundee Library for $2,442 per month.
Mike Tennis, so move.
And Brian will second.
Brian seconded.
Okay.
Okay, Lauren, would you briefly go over what this is about, please?
Okay. We've had a longtime custodian. He's done a wonderful job for the library, but he was interested in retirement. He's worked a long time and is ready to step back a little bit, but he wanted to keep on, possibly as a part-time duties. And because his duties involve more than just cleaning the library, he would do the book drops every day and would assist with maintenance projects and would drop off the bank deposit. And then when he would do his book drop rounds, he'd do some light cleaning over at Randall Oaks. So he was wondering if he could transition to part-time work and keep up those duties, but then hire an external cleaning service to take care of the heavy cleaning at Dundee. And so we ran the numbers. Michael did an outstanding job. He got 6 quotes for different custodial services, and 2, that were comparable as the low bidder. Called the references on the 2 low bidders, and both had public library experience. So it's our recommendation that we go with the lowest bidder, which was Jana King of Illinois. The net savings to the library, when you take into account the expenses required of a hired staff member, means we will save about $8,500 a year by switching to a custodial service.
Okay, does anyone have any comments on this particular exhibit? I do think it's particularly important given our current situation with COVID-19, even when the library gets back in business, that we really focus on cleaning. And having a professional in there, I think, is going to be a plus for us. Any other comments? Nikki, could we have a vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
I'm sorry, I can't, yes.
okay, Mike,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Was that a yes, Brian? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Nikki, yes. Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item C2, strategic plan. May I have a motion to approve the
Chairman? Mike Tennis speaking.
motion?
I would like to have a motion. I would like to move that the strategic plan item be tabled, given a substantial amount of closed session time required, and that it be back on the agenda in June.
Okay, we haven't amended, well, we haven't even had a motion yet, so there is a motion to table item C2. Is there a second for that motion?
Yes. Nikki will second it so we can move into discussion.
Okay, then can we have a vote? Is there any discussion about tabling or not tabling?
I guess, Lauren, with your timeline, would this cause you any issues if we don't cover this item tonight?
Well, it had been our intention to have this done so we could incorporate it into performance evaluation goals at the beginning of the new fiscal year. But with everything else that's gone on, it's we're really pushing back the evaluations until the fall anyway. So no, I don't see any downside to pushing it out at this point.
Hey, Lauren, can you mute everyone again? The echo is getting kind of bad.
Done.
Okay, if we have, if there's no further discussion, could we have a roll call, please?
So this is a roll call to
The table,
C2. Do we need to roll call a motion to table?
I think given that we're doing this remotely, I think all votes should be handled
All right,
on a roll
sounds
call.
good. So this is a motion to table C2 until June.
That's correct.
Okay, and then Mike motion to table. I second the motion to table. Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Okay, item C3, minimum wage requirement, update the salary scale. May I have a motion to approve the updated salary scale as presented.
So moved.
Who is
That was
that?
Christina.
Christina.
Chris seconds.
And Chris second. Okay, Lauren, would you like to go over this one?
Well, the board had approved the updated salary scale with some structural changes that we felt were necessary, and incorporating the new minimum wage that will be in effect July 1st. And we wanted to avoid compression of all the wage categories. And so that was the rationale for voting for the new salary scale. But the question came up because of the economic downturn, if we should in fact have a wage freeze. And if the board decided you wanted to do a wage freeze, then we would not, we couldn't freeze wages and incorporate the approved salary scale. So, so this board exhibit is here for your consideration.
Okay, so in effect, what we're doing is we're replacing the salary scale that was approved at, what was it, in January? We approved it, I believe?
Yes.
We're replacing it with the one that was in effect for fiscal year 2019 and 20, going back to where we were. Any discussion on this?
With the exception of the minimum wage, that's the only one that would be changed, correct?
That is correct.
That's correct, because we're required by law to follow the minimum wage. Yes.
Right.
Anything else? And we have a roll call, please.
So,
Wait, did I hear
question, what,
somebody?
yeah, hi, this is Dave. So what is the overall net effect of this reverting back to last year's salary schedule?
It saves $20,000 a year.
Can I ask, I refresh my memory if I'm not remembering this correctly, but what was the rationale?
It was brought to me that the board would be interested in considering a wage freeze. And if the board wanted to consider a wage freeze, then we would need to revert back to the old salary scale.
Why?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. That's kind of my question is, I guess, wouldn't we have to decide if we're going to do a wage freeze first? And
Yeah,
Well,
I don't understand why that would be necessary.
Lauren, to confirm, you said the savings is $20,000 per year across the entire staff.
To change the salary scale back, yes.
I just don't see how $20,000 is worth the damage to morale that a freeze would cause.
I agree on that.
Mike Tennis speaking. Right at the end of Lauren's write-up on C3, the last sentence, he points out that the salary budget for 2021 will be $1,790,000, a reduction of 2.7% from the budget for fiscal year 1920. Fiscal year 1920, yeah. And I was delighted to see Lauren propose this change because we have to be sensitive to the taxpayers and the current economic conditions. When so many of the residents are getting laid off or taking pay cuts, holding the line salary-wise, I think is a smart move, and yet complies the revised schedule with the change in the minimum wage, complies with the state mandated minimum wage requirements. So I applaud the change.
Anyone else?
I can understand all of the things you said, Mike. But I also think Christina's correct. The amount of, first of all, the amount of work that we're requiring of our librarian staff, and also the fact that I think it could be a tremendous morale changer in our library. And I think keeping it as it was, changing it back is only going to save us $20,000. And to me, that's not a huge amount for the damage it can do to the morale of our staff that's working so hard.
This is Richard. And I've struggled with this a bit myself, but I can't help but think that this is a way to show the community that we get the pain that people are experiencing, and that we're doing whatever small amount it is to show the public that we're doing what we can to hold the line on spending during this particular time. We're talking about a single year wage freeze and nothing beyond that at this point.
But if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't change anything of what if we go back to Lauren's director's report, nothing will change from what we are, sorry. I have to go back so many pages. Nothing will change. We can't change what we're already, oh my gosh, I can't think of the word. Somebody help me out.
The levy, right?
Yes.
But don't forget, we're not mandated to spend that entire amount.
Yeah,
Anyone
this
else?
is Dave. I have real mixed feelings on this, as I'm sure we all do. But I actually had wanted to, would like to go with the new schedule, but given that I think our the employees will they're probably much more concerned about whether they're going to have a job or not, and not so much what that dollar figure is, and they'll understand that it's important, to, as a couple of people have already said, to show the public that we're, we are concerned about the money that's being spent, and so yeah, so I would vote in favor of this.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Anybody else want to make a comment? Okay, hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
No,
Mike. You're muted, Mike.
Yes.
Brian,
No.
Nikki, no. Christina,
No,
Richard,
Yes. And the results?
3 ayes, 4 nays.
Okay, the motion does not carry. Okay. Moving on to the next one, which is item C4. Employment status of part-time shelvers, clerks, maintenance, and assistants. Before I ask for a motion, I'd just like to make a kind of help to kind of put this in perspective, I think. We are truly in a unique situation here at our library. The coronavirus has forced the closure of the library for a prolonged period. We have an emergency closure pay policy, which is being used as the basis for continuing to pay all staff. However, our library emergency closing policy was written with the view of short-term closings, such as snowstorms, power outages, and other short-term events. It was never intended to cover long-term closing declaration. Lauren raised this concern with me during the past month. She is uncomfortable with continuing to pay all staff under a policy which is never intended for our current situation. She has asked that the board give her direction as we move forward. We see in Exhibit C4 two options that will give Lauren that direction. Option 1 is to continue paying all staff as we are now doing for a specified period, perhaps until the next board meeting, at which time we would revisit the issue. Option 2 is to furlough those employees whose jobs are directly tied to the library being open for business until we are reopened and once again need their service. So those are the two options as we see to go forward. So in order to proceed, I would like to have a discussion among board members to get their views on this matter before we select either option for a vote. Therefore, I would like to ask for a motion to discuss the employment status of part-time shelvers, clerks, and maintenance assistants. After we get a sense of the board as it relates to this matter, I would ask that the discussion motion be withdrawn and replaced with the motion for either option 1 or option 2. So if there are no objections to that approach, I would like to entertain a motion to discuss. May I
So
have
moved.
such a motion?
I move to discuss.
A second, please.
Second, Mike Tennis.
Okay,
Okay,
so Christina, motion to discuss, and Mike, second. Thank you.
okay. Let me just, I'm getting a lot of feedback. There certainly is, we're talking about the employees, principally the part-time staff. I think there's about, what was it, Lauren, about 34?
34 that are under consideration.
Right. We certainly have the money in our budget. Unlike other businesses whose revenue is dependent on sales or performing a service, ours is supported by taxpayer money. So the money is there. The question is continuing to pay the employees the best use of taxpayer money in our situation? The situation certainly was not caused by our employees. And we've heard at all levels of government the stressing of that employees should not be penalized because of this situation. And that wherever possible, organizations should continue to pay their employees. But I applaud Lauren for bringing up the subject. We're operating under a policy that was never intended for the situation we're in, and we just need to make a decision what to do. So I'll throw it out to discussion open to anyone who wants to make a comment.
I think that I'd really like to see us go with option one. I think that it is the best for our employees. I know that is kind of the standard of what other agencies are doing in our situation. So I really can't see a reason for us to go with option two.
This
Excuse
is,
me.
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, which was option one and which is option two? I only have one screen going here, so.
Dave, option one is to continue paying the employees, all staff, their current level of pay, at least until next meeting where we can revisit the issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this is Brian. If I could, I think the analogy working in a school district is what we've had to do with people like the noon hour supervisors and bus drivers, roles that I think, as Lauren has kind of described here with these folks, can they do anything from home when they're not physically in the library? Because I think that's where this one, to me, feels a little different than the previous one that we looked at, because folks like Lauren and John and Carrie and Jason, I mean, these guys are probably working harder right now than they would have been under a traditional model. I know that the case working in the school district, this has forced us all to work, much harder, which is why the salary freeze one didn't make a lot of sense to me. This one, I think the part I struggle with is we could be looking at this for a while. So we would be paying people that I'd like a better feel for at this point. Or are they doing any work for the library, or is there really nothing in their current role that they're able to do from home? Because otherwise we could be paying them for a few months of not working at all, I guess, right? And that may have been why Lauren proposed it.
I have one other thing, and that's, Brian, that is I'm with Christina. I would love to do option one. Is it feasible for a very long time? And I agree with Brian on it feels different than the salary freeze. I have a question that I don't know the answer to, and because I've heard this other places where, because of the addition of the $600 in unemployment, some people are choosing to continue. They make more money. It was a PBS.
Richard, would you like to address this, or shall I?
What was that?
Richard, would you like to address this, or shall I?
So the NPR business story of the day.
I'm going to stop you
Yeah.
here, Nikki.
Okay.
It's very important that the board not base any decision on any standing that might happen as a result of any federal stimulus. From a legal standpoint, the board's decision needs to be solely based on the data that has been provided to you without any extraneous considerations. Does Richard, is that a fair way to put that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. We've been advised that we cannot use any federal stimulus as a reason to do or not do. However, if you've read the resolution that we would have to pass to authorize a layoff or a furlough, it does say that the employees would be eligible for unemployment. They may be eligible, and that the IDES, Illinois Department of Employment Security, is the sole referee in that regard as to who gets it and who doesn't.
Exactly.
But
Is
so
there
we
clerical work that you can give them for the next month and then we can revisit this next month? Like, are there, tasks that always get backburnered, like some cataloging project or something some data entry project that you can give them for this month?
Of this group, the part-time shelvers, clerks, maintenance, and assistants, the assistants have still been performing some work, right? We've got some virtual story times going on that are awesome. So that there are degrees, right? The shelvers honestly have not done any work. There just isn't. They're there to put stuff on the shelves. And while we've tried to emphasize some self-directed training, given them webinars, nobody is going to come up with 12 hours of webinars on how to put items on shelves that you're going to do for weeks at a time, right? I mean, I'm just being realistic here. A lot of library directors are talking about how their staff are all doing all this virtual work, and I am 100% with them. A lot of staff are doing a lot of virtual work, but not all staff can, and so that's why we're that is a consideration. The secondary consideration is, as we noted, once shelter in place is lifted, we can't have 60 people all working in the library together. We're going to need social distancing. First, we're going to be having curbside service, and then who knows how long that period of time will last. And then we can have people in the building, but we're going to have everything taped off, like the post office or the grocery store. So you have to be 6 feet away from each other. And we are in two relatively small locations, so we just can't have everyone all working together. So that's my other driver in this, beyond the immediate concerns. At this point, shelter in place is lifted May 1st, and so I am operating in the fervent hope that we are able to offer some services on May 1st. And if that's the case, I can't put all 60 people to work safely.
I have a question this is Chris. If they are entitled to apply for unemployment, because I don't know the answer to this, what is our responsibility to financially if they do apply for unemployment from the library?
Well, we are a reimbursable employer, and so every penny of the state's portion will be billed back to the library. Every portion of the federal portion, the additional stimulus, would not be billed back to the library.
Can you give me a percentage of that or some idea financially what that means?
I would rather not, because I would not like those factors those factors cannot play a part in the board's decision.
Lauren, this is Brian. My question is, you mentioned that 10 of them qualified for benefits.
Correct.
If they are on library benefits during a furlough, then do they have to pay the employer portion of the benefits, or how does that work?
They're not on health insurance. They receive accruals for vacation, sick, and personal time, and they also receive IMRF. So the accruals will continue to accrue as long as you're an active employee. With every payroll period, you get, whatever, a couple of hours or something of sick time added in. For IMRF, if they don't have any earned income, then they're not paying anything to IMRF, and the library is not paying anything to IMRF.
Got it. Thank you.
This is Nikki. So if we
Financial impact,
get brain block.
keeping the employees. Say again?
So if I have a question, if we, let's say we furlough them and this money that we would normally pay them, it just stays there, and then we would have that extra money for next year that we wouldn't then, like, how does that benefit the taxpayers, I guess, is my question. If this is one of the considerations for furloughing, how does furloughing these employees benefit the public?
That's an excellent question. So a lot of people would say it doesn't benefit me at all because the tax rate is already set. The amount they need to pay in June and September is already set. That levy was set in November. The board does not have the option to change that levy. As I mentioned in my board report, I called Kane County to even confirm with them, is there a way to abate the taxes that will be paid in 2020? And the answer is no, the bills are ready to go. So the question is, what advantage would there be? The only advantage is having every year we run a budget surplus. And this year the budget surplus would be, if the board were to decide to furlough, would be $8,500 per week greater because that wasn't spent as salary money. So it would be banked and we would invest it, or, and earn some interest on it for future expenditures. For example, if we had talked about if we were to build a new building at some point in the future and the need for operating expenditures to pay future salaries, then, that money could be used to pay future salaries.
Lauren, Mike
Mr.
Tennis
Chris?
here. Mike Tennis here, Lauren. The $8,500 a week, does that include FICA?
You know what, that doesn't include FICA, and it doesn't include IMRF 10 that are IMRF as well. So it is a higher number.
So it's probably closer to 10,000?
Yep. Yeah, 10,000 net.
Okay. Let me comment on one thing, because I participated in this discussion with the Park District over 2 meetings. They had an emergency meeting March 23rd and then an April 1st meeting. And because the library employees work at the rec center, for example, most of their employees are part-time employees, okay? They laid off they furloughed the part-time employees for as of April 7th. And because a lot of them, in addition to the 2 fitness centers, you've got a lot of part-time people working for District 300, or not working for District 300, but working for the preschool and after-school care programs that the Park District had. So there were a lot of part-timers, 78 of them, that were slated to be furloughed on April 7th. And they elected to continue with the full-timers until April 15th to kind of plan for the longer terms in terms of fitness centers and golf courses and all the various programs, probably similar to the library when if you're running these, I don't recall what they call, Circle of Friends, I think they call it, after school program. It's like a story time. All those people were furloughed. And because of library employees working in the same building with Park District employees, it there seems to be a dichotomy if we let this go much longer. As is, the part-time employees have had 5 weeks of compensation, and I think there's because we're on the reimbursable method of unemployment insurance rather than the contributing method, while there isn't significant savings realized because it'll be charged back, probably most of it will be charged back. If we are planning to get the support of the residents of the park district, of the library district, on a new facility going forward, I think we need to demonstrate that we're trying to be empathic with the residents' needs at this very extreme. I mean, this is being painted as an economic situation that will be worse than the Great Recession. And we need to recognize that sooner than later. The state of Illinois is virtually, the marketplace is already recognizing the state of Illinois as junk bond status in daily market trading. And, you know, don't be surprised at all if certain income streams don't come to us, like the per capita grant next year. So we need to, you know, start demonstrating that we're doing the best we can to do our fair share to help turn things around.
This is Richard. One point, Mike, which you mentioned about the Park District, they're dissimilar to us in the respect that they have a lot of pay for their services. Now they're in a situation where the golf courses are closed, the rec center's closed, so they're not getting the revenue that they would normally get. So their layoff or their furloughing is as much an economic thing as private business in many respects. We're in a little bit different situation in that 93% of our revenue is locked in. And as you say, that being on a reimbursable, it's almost going to wash whether or not they stay on the payroll or not from an economic standpoint. It seems to me the question that we have to answer is paying these employees while they're sitting at home in the best interest of the taxpayers of our district.
Lauren, what are you hearing from other library directors?
So I meet every Monday on a conference call with 40 to 50 other library directors, and one library, Mount Prospect, has furloughed, and no others. We are the only one that is considering it right now.
This is Chris. I'm listening to the discussion and I'm really open to both sides of the issue. But I agree with Richard in the fact that, you know, the Park District and golf courses and stuff like that are taking money in, whereas we've budgeted. And I guess this requires me to put my old union hat back on. But honestly, I hate to see us increase our found money by $8,500 a month on the backs of employees that have been loyal to us and have, made our library what it is. And I understand there's issues with those people, a certain amount of people like the shelvers who cannot get paid, who are going to get paid for doing nothing. But I really struggle with breaking their backs so we can get 8,500 a month or less.
My also thought is, this is Nikki, is because I absolutely see both sides of this. I am so torn. I want desperately option one. But I see also perception for the public if we are asking for a new building and a referendum. So I am so torn. But then I think, okay, so if we furlough, are we contributing to a decline in the economy? Granted, it's only 34 people, but for those 34 people, I mean, I don't want to, I'm so torn, but I see both sides of it. I absolutely agree with pretty much everything, but is this something that we can, okay, we do not furlough now, and then it comes up again at the next meeting. God forbid we are still in this situation, because is this like this or nothing?
Option one would be, you do not furlough now, but it would come up at the next meeting.
And it would definitely will be a subject at the next meeting, given that Governor Pritzker today has said that we're not even looking at a peak until mid-May, and Mayor Lightfoot indicated that she expects stay at home to June. And Lauren has clarified that, we're not going to go immediately back to 60 when the stay at home is lifted. So we're talking about probably a month or two, probably closer to 2 for most of the part-timers. 2 additional months in addition to the 5 weeks they've already been compensated for staying at home.
I was going to make this, Brian, I was going to make a similar point, and I would say, Mike, it may be more than 2 months, because say in June, we may be coming back under some sort of a revised opening. And Lauren, it sounds like if we were doing like curbside pickup or limiting the number of patrons in the library at a time, you may not need those part-time people then either. So, I mean, it could be fall or something before we're back to like, library operation as normal. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards option 2 in this case, because I think if we were talking about furloughing them for 3 or 4 weeks, I would say don't bother. Let's just pay, assume they all come back May 15th, and the library's open as it always was, and you need every single one of them. I feel like it's a long way from that point, and I sort of feel like if we don't do it tonight, in 30 days now we would have just paid those people 1 more month. But I'm just thinking, like, what would make us change our mind and take a different call in May?
Can I just point out, I feel like things have been changing so rapidly over the past couple of weeks. We've learned so much more. It feels like the whole landscape of this entire situation is changing every 2 or 3 days. So I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. I don't even know if we're going to be on a regular school schedule in the fall. I don't know. Sometimes it seems like we're not going back to normal for 18 months. But I feel like whereas furloughing might be something that we end up doing, I just don't feel like we're there yet. I feel like it would be nice to at least give it another month, see where we are in a month, see where testing is in a month, see what people think about that peak. And I don't know.
This is Chris. I think if we do with option 1 and look at it again, we're also going to be able to say to those people, this is on the board's table. This is something we've discussed. You need to know that this is possibly going to happen officially. I know they, in their heart of hearts, they know it's going to happen somewhere down the line, but I would at least like to give them some preparation for it and official notification of it, so that they're prepared. Officially prepared.
Well, so we post the board packet online, and there's a reporter for the Chicago Tribune Patch that frequently reads the board packet. And so I was concerned that that it would get read and an article would be posted, and I didn't want staff to find out that the board was considering it by that avenue. So I personally telephoned all 34 potentially affected staff members last Wednesday and let them know that this item is on the agenda. So that's why we do have some staff that are participating in this meeting, that are viewing this meeting, because they have been made aware that this is under consideration tonight. They do have a week now.
And thank you, Lauren, this is Chris again. Thank you for taking that step. I think that probably meant a lot to them to have you do that, because God knows they don't want to find it from the Patch newspaper. And I really applaud you for that. But I, for one, would like to say to them, we're going to give it one more month. Let's see where we are. I agree with Christina. Things are changing very quickly, and I would just like to see that one more month put in.
Okay, this is Dave. I don't think I have anything new to add. I think the perception of the taxpayers is important. I think that it's clear that Illinois is broke, and we probably can't. We probably should be thinking long term that some of the money that we get from the state is not going to be there. What the other library districts are doing, and school districts and park districts is important. And the effect on employee morale is all of that. I just don't think that, the way things, I just don't think in the next 30 days, and that will be, that we'll be talking this over again, much maybe more pessimistically in 30 days than we are now, and that we ought to just go ahead and make the tough decision. So. And I will mute.
Does anyone have any other comments to make? Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to think there are more leanings toward furloughing, which is option 2, than there are in continuing to pay employees. Is that a fair assessment of what we've heard tonight?
Would you like a motion to adopt Resolution 2020?
But I would like, Mike, if I could, I would like a motion to withdraw the discussion motion. We have a motion on the table to discuss. I would like that withdrawn and a motion made with one of the 2 options.
I'll withdraw my discussion motion.
Okay, it's going to have a second on that.
Second, Mike Tennis.
Okay, let's have a quick roll call vote on that one.
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Okay, now may I have a motion to adopt either option 1 or option 2? May I have a motion for one of those?
Mike
Like
Tennis moves to adopt Resolution 2020-04, authorizing furlough of all part-time shelvers, clerks, maintenance, and assistants effective April 22nd, 2020, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on library operations and issuance of notices to affected staff.
It's been moved. May I have a second, please?
Second, this is Dave.
Dave, thank you, Dave.
Okay, one last round of comments.
You
Anyone?
haven't really said what you think, Richard.
I intentionally didn't want to.
I'm calling you out.
Okay. You know, I've wrestled with this a lot. You know, on one hand, I look at these employees. What have we been asking them to do for the last year or two? Improve their performance, be more receptive to our patrons, to be more helpful to our patrons, to do all those things that are moving our library forward. And through no fault of their own, we're now looking at sending them, telling them, well, sorry, economics are economics, even though the money is already there. However, I remember when I was first elected president of the board, I had a meeting with our attorney to give me sort of a indoctrination orientation into the duties of a president. And during the course of that conversation, he reminded me that we're fiduciaries and that there may come a time when we need to vote something other than what we feel internally. I'd love to say, let's keep these folks on, but I think it's in the best interests of our taxpayers that we address the situation for what it is. It doesn't have, if this thing had an ending of May 15th, I'd feel very strongly about keeping things on. But in my opinion, in the best interests of our taxpayers, we just have to furlough these folks. That's my take on it.
I just don't see how, 99% of government agencies are not doing that. We're going to be one of only 2 library districts in all of Chicagoland who feel the need to furlough their part-time employees. We're in the middle of an unprecedented situation. I don't see it, but.
This is Chris. I agree. If Lauren had said to us, look, I meet with all these librarians, and yes, every single one of the librarians are furloughing, I would understand. I don't think we want to be one of 2. I agree with Christina. And by going with option 1, and yes, we may have a much more fervent discussion and a more impassioned discussion at our May meeting, I just feel like we need to give it 1 more month. And after that, we can look at it. But I think we have to look at what other libraries and government agencies are doing.
I think it's a bad look. I think being trailblazers on this is a bad look.
Anybody else?
I do have one quick question. So let's say the furlough passes. How do we have to pass a resolution to cancel this option
The resolution says explicitly that the library director has the authority to call back furloughed staff as I need them.
Okay, I missed that then because I was looking. Oh, I keep looking at your cover sheet. That's my fault. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I guess my question maybe for the rest of the trustees is, so what would have to look different in May if we revisit this in May that would cause you to think about this differently? Because I'm just trying to think, like, in my mind, like what the most likely sort of scenario is. And it feels like we are at least a few months away from having any sense of normal operation where we'd need all these part-time staff. I'm just saying, based on all the projections that we're seeing, based on working in a school district and where we are very unsure what even kids going back to school in August is going to look like. So I'm just picturing like by May, I don't know that there's going to be some definitive guidance that like libraries won't open the entire calendar year 2020. But is that the kind of like clear direction we would need to consider making a move like this? I just feel like we'll come back in May and it will still be very iffy.
Brian, to answer your question for me, it's one, giving the staff another buffer. Yes, Lauren did an amazing job and she called on Wednesday, but that's 6 days ago. So it would, one, give them a 4-week buffer that this is probably coming. And two, I'm with Christina. It is changing every 2-3 days. It's slowing down a little bit on how rapidly it's changing, but it gives us a little more time. And so I agree that this is probably going to happen and it will probably happen in May. But I feel like I would like more time, 4 weeks, and to figure out what the new normal is, and to give them more warning. That's my thinking behind this.
And, we've heard these guidelines, this guidance for, we have to have these 3 things put in place for everything to start opening the way they should, right? We need to have testing. We need to have a way to track who's had it and who hasn't and who's been in contact. I forget what that's called. And there was one other thing. And right now we are nowhere near where we need to be to make that happen. And I understand that. But again, I feel like everything's changing so rapidly that, 3 weeks from now, we could have some miraculous testing, genie show up. I don't know. and things could be different. We could be looking at more optimistic signs that things are going to open soon. If we're still where we are today, then I will understand you guys feeling the way that you feel, because there is no end in sight as of right now. I really do think that it would be good to give it some more time.
Brian, you asked the question of what would need to be in place. This is Chris, sorry. What would need to be in place. And one of the things, aside from what Nikki said about the 2 points that, it gives them more time, plus things might be changing, I would like to still see what other libraries are doing. I agree. Christina voiced it exactly the way I would have. I don't want to be a trailblazer for 1 out of 2. And I really feel strongly about that. As I think we all feel strongly about our own opinions. And that's not to discredit anybody else's opinion. Right. I hope I haven't been disrespectful or anything. That would be my reasoning, Brian.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Dave, let me just poll everybody. Dave, any more comments?
No, not really. Thank you.
Mike?
No more.
Brian?
No.
Christina?
Nope.
Chris?
No.
Nikki?
No, thank you.
And I don't have anything further. Can we have voting option 2, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the furlough of those?
Dave.
Maintenance and assistance. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Dave.
Yes.
Chris.
No.
Mike.
Yes.
Brian.
No.
Nikki, no. Christina.
No.
Richard.
Yes. Can we have the tally, please?
3 yeses, 4 noes.
So the motion does not carry. Then the other option is, may I have a motion to approve option 1?
So moved.
Brian, so moved.
Is
Sorry, was that you,
Brian?
Brian?
Yes.
Thanks, Brian. Nikki will second the motion 1 or option 1, sorry.
Okay, option 1, again, is to continue to pay to employ and pay the part-time shelvers, clerks, maintenance, and assistants through at least until our next meeting, which is May 19th. Any comments on this motion?
Just one comment, Mike Tennis. Lauren, as a practical matter in processing a payroll, what's the best cutoff date?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, when I had the HR attorney draft the resolution, he put in the date being the day after the board meeting, and that's fine. I mean, we're talking about hourly staff, and we published the schedule using templates of the hours that they usually work. So whatever the date is, you know, if it were to happen in May, then the furlough would be the day after the board meeting, and we would just adjust the time cards as such.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please? Hearing nothing, may we have a roll call vote on option 1?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
No.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki is yes, Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
No. So may we have the count, please?
5 yeses, 2 nos.
Okay, the motion is passed. We will continue to employ and pay our part-time shelvers at least through next month's meeting. Okay. That concludes the open meeting portion. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with 5 ICLS 120/2 C5, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of by a public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether
So move, Mike Tennis.
motion, please.
Thank you, Mike.
Second?
I second it. Chris?
Chris seconds. Okay, at the conclusion of the executive session, there will be no further business to be conducted.
Do you want to do a roll call vote to adjourn?
I would like a roll call vote to adjourn.
Dave,
Yes.
Chris? You're muted, Chris.
I know.
There you
Yes, there you go.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.